How's it going, guys? In today's video, we're going to check out the Fujifilm XF 18-120 f4. The full name of it goes LMPZWR. So linear motor, it has a power zoom, and then water sealed or resistance. It's a telephoto lens that came out, I think, back in 2022. So it's fairly new, I guess, in the scheme of camera lenses. I rented this guy for about 24 days. I took it on a few trips and just around town and just kind of carried it with me every day. One of the reasons why I rented this one in particular, it was a nice focal zoom range of 1820. I know it being so broad, it's not the best for photography, but I was kind of getting into a little bit more via videography, and it'd be cool to try out. And another reason was there was this chart I found, and it has, I guess, some of the lenses that like best resolve the 40 megapixel sensor that I have on the X-T5, and it was on the list. I basically carried this lens with me the whole time I had it. I put it in my, I think it's my Moment 4-liter bag, and it was fairly nice setup. I had my 23 prime lens tucked in the corner, and then attached to the camera basically the whole time was the 18-120. And it was a little heavy, but I got used to it, and it was kind of a nice combo having a prime and a nice zoom. This isn't an in-depth review of this lens. It's kind of definitely more of a look into how I used it, my kind of thoughts on it, and how my kind of photography and some of the video work I did for my personal stuff turned out. But I did want to talk about the build quality a little bit. It's a solid lens. It definitely, I think, has more of a, it has a metal mounting and maybe like a metal interior parts. The exterior of it is definitely plasticky. All like the focal manual rings and power switches and stuff like that is plastic. Doesn't necessarily feel cheap. It doesn't feel as nice as my prime lens, but it's definitely way better than my little cheap XC kit lens I have. But yeah, overall it's a decent lens for quality. I do want to say that the power zoom on this lens is fairly quiet. It was something I was kind of worried about because my kit lens I have is super noisy. And so I just want to have these two videos so you guys can listen to the differences between these two guys. I kind of mentioned this earlier, but this isn't a technical review of this lens. It's definitely more of a kind of like my opinion and insight, I guess you want to say, into this lens and how it worked for me and the things I kind of liked and didn't like about the lens. But starting out, I took these kind of section of photos, just kind of showing the different focal lengths, because personally, I would always kind of have it hard to imagine what a certain focal length looks like, because they're always changing. Like I know what a 23 is because that's what I've been shooting for so long, but like, oh, what does a 50 look like, or a 90 or an 18? And so I did a bunch of these just to give me like kind of a reference point to base myself off of. But the one thing definitely using this lens that it was kind of hard was it doesn't have like a focal length ring like with pre-designated like marking points. It's just zoom in and out of, you stop where you want to, and getting precise like focal lengths, like, oh, you want 23 or you want a solid 50 or a 90 or a 105 or whatever, was definitely kind of tricky. There could be a better way to get more precise that I just didn't realize with my time with the lens. That was kind of annoying sometimes. I know that this lens was definitely more for videography work and it was perfect for that, and I can show more examples of that later. But with this lens, I kind of wanted to show is at 120, and so I started kind of zooming in. And at the very end of this video, I'm probably at like 300% zoom, and it is a rock, so it's kind of hard, but it's fairly sharp. It's not too blurry, which I kind of find is cool. Just some more, just different reference photos I took. This is at open at 18. This is probably halfway, maybe I got 50 or 60. And here's the last one at 120. Again, I kind of zoomed in about 300%, and it's crazy that you can see all this detail still. It's not sharp or beautiful, but it's just, there's so much detail still left in the photo. Just a different location. I wanted to kind of show focal length, zooming in on something closer. It's just a cactus and a gnome. But the one thing I did kind of catch myself doing a lot of times was kind of hovering in that 120 focal length a lot, because it's just something that was so new and kind of exciting to be able to reach out and kind of take photos without being so close, or taking pictures of buildings where you can't really reach with like a 23 millimeter prime lens. And I know you can crop with like this camera being a 40 megapixel and you can crop, but for me, I've been viewing photography as how you see it and how you take it, and what lens you have kind of dictates what you should be doing. But yeah, as we zoom into this, I think it's crazy sharp, and I'm not looking for the craziest or sharpest thing in the world, but just the fidelity of these photos is just kind of mind blowing, even when you're zooming in like 400%. I kind of want to go into some of the photographs I took in this different lighting scenarios, and just it was kind of eye opening using this lens. I kind of said earlier, of just having that focal length of kind of zooming in and zooming out. I thought f4 would be a little bit more of a constraint, since it's not completely wide open. I'm definitely used to more of an f2, and I take a lot of night photography, and that f2 definitely helps out. But during like golden hour, like these photos we see, I think it rounded up well. A lot of my recipes I use have grain to it, so noise isn't always the biggest factor for me. But photos like this, where I can zoom in and kind of just isolate the mountain, and then kind of in front of us is like the lava rocks, and it was just kind of cool being able to have that ability on different occasions to kind of zoom in and kind of isolate your subject a little bit better. And these next few photos are definitely me using that 120 millimeter focal length to my advantage. Like this was like a 2 or 3 story brick building, and I loved the brick, and then the lighting of the shadows and lighting bouncing off the trees around it. With the prime lens, could never have reached it. This one right here of a guy doing some rock climbing. He was across a river, so he's really far away. Even I'm maxed out 120 here, and he's still a tiny pebble. But I think it's kind of cool in that way, because he's wearing a bright shirt compared to like these sandy yellow orangey rocks. So he stands out. And again, you can zoom in and the detail is still there. Like it's not getting blurry or really muddly that much. And yeah, it's just a cool photo, and like the opportunity kind of to take something like this with this lens was kind of eye opening. And again, it's kind of like the last couple. It's like being able to zoom in and kind of isolate your subject. But definitely with landscaping, I kind of find it was really useful having the larger zoom or focal length. And yeah, it was fun. It was really eye opening, and I really enjoyed this lens. Again, I'm not the best with street photography, even though this is in a park. But yeah, this guy was doing some rock climbing again, and a bright blue shirt instead of a red one. And yeah, it was like I was fairly far away, but I was able to zoom in and kind of just add a pop of color to this photo. This one photo, though, took me many tries with this lens. It was pitch dark, and there was some light around it, as you can see in this photo. But trying to get it with the f4 and the zoom took me several tries. Normally with my prime lens, I can frame it, adjust my exposure a little bit, and I'm pretty set. But this one probably took me like 5 minutes of just messing with my exposure, my shutter speed, my ISO to get it perfectly right. And I think the f4 definitely limited me, and it definitely made it harder. Of course, definitely my issue with some of these photos, because I'm still learning. But yeah, this one definitely took me a while to figure out. So for the past year, I basically have only used a 23 millimeter prime lens for all my photography work, and having the ability to kind of zoom in and out, and especially using a 120 millimeter focal length was so fun. I was able to try out bird photography. No clue what I was doing, but I try to stay still and zoom in on like this hummingbird. But like I kept saying, it just was so eye opening, and it was just so fun because I was able to experiment with different types of photography that the 23 millimeter definitely kind of limited me on. And yeah, like I was able to take a picture of this little chipmunk squirrel guy just chilling on a rock. And then I was able to take pictures of some ducks, like in a little river. And so it was so fun. Like the one thing that this lens had for me was it was fun, and it let me try out new photography, I guess, subcategories. And yeah, I just had a blast using it, especially again at that 120, like maxed out, and it being f4. It had enough light for most of my photography I was using. Oh, and I was like able to do some moon or astrophotography. I took one photo of the moon, but like I could have never done that before. I didn't have to zoom in crazy to see it. And for a basic moon picture, I'm proud of it. And like I keep saying it, I'm a broken record, honestly, through this whole video, but just the versatility of this lens of this photo. I'm like across the road, so I don't need something too crazy. I'm zoomed in a little bit on this horse and trailer, and I was able to frame it up how I wanted it to. And then I turned around and basically turned over and had this nice little view of the mountains, the trees, like the parking lot getting filled in this rodeo, and like this little family and this dude pointing. And I could able to kind of open it up, maybe like at 18. I think it was probably maybe like 20 or 30. And yeah, it's just that versatility of this lens was immense. As those last two kind of alluded, we went to a rodeo. The one thing I did notice about this lens, it could have been user error again, was like this photo is fairly a darker exposure. I still think it turned out fairly well, and the camera and autofocus and the power zoom and all that worked really well in this scenario. But that one was dark, and then the rest of them were light, like this one. Again, this is, I think it's a little blown out a little bit, but I still think it's usable. But yeah, the lens and the camera, it could have been me again. We're doing like dark exposures for some of them. It would like switch over to like really light, kind of bright exposures. But oh well, I think for my first time kind of doing more action or sports photography, I think they turned out fairly well. And then again, the reach was immense of having, it was so practical. And the autofocus nailed it. I probably took 300, 400 shots through this whole thing. I'm definitely not showing you all of them, but the autofocus probably hit 98% of the time. And the other times were probably me messing something up or a hat hitting it or what have you. And coming up with these next two photos are probably some of my favorite from the little rodeo we went to. This guy, the rodeo clown, is kind of squaring off with the bull, and you have the horse in the left kind of just staring. It kind of adds a little humor aspect to it. And this next one, you just have one of the bullfighters just running for his life away from the bull. This was a different bull. Actually, might be the same bull, actually. I think it's the same bull. He was not happy. But yeah, it was just, it adds moment and character. The dust kicking up and the lighting was good. Of course, you're dealing with some hats on the bottom left and right of the image, but it adds, I guess, a little bit more chaotic energy to the image. Now kind of switching over to some more video aspect of this lens. I think this one was definitely geared towards more videography and video work. Definitely not my expertise, but it's definitely something I definitely want to maybe get into down the road, since I'm making these videos and just trying to make them better and more professional, the better I get at editing. But yeah, I think this lens works fairly well during the day. It worked perfect during the day, I should say. And then the one thing, I think slow zoom ins for the autofocus is probably the best. You don't get that much autofocus breathing, and then autofocus stayed sticky throughout it. When you're doing fast pulls in and out, it shakes, it kind of loses focus, and I'm thinking that's probably kind of normal. And yeah, we're in the dusk time, and I think it being f4 still works. It's nothing too crazy, no noise, it's too drastically bad. This one, it's pitch black. It was like 2 a.m. We're in the same spot, and yeah, I don't know if it's f4 or f2. I don't know if anything could really perform well in this type of environment. Worked, it did its thing, not well, but you know, I don't know what lens could have. These next couple examples, I just was trying to zoom in and out on different kind of lighting and environments. This one is pitch black again at night, but we're kind of zooming in more into like a really bright backyard. Not creepy, not trying to be. And it worked fairly well. Zooming on some power lines on a sunny day. Autofocus is sticky, no breathing. We're back at the same area that those photos were taken, and it looks good. The autofocus is great. There's no breathing besides me shaking the camera. But yeah, I watched like a bunch of the videos before renting this lens, and it seemed like autofocus, like blurring and like stuttering and stuff like that, was more prevalent in those videos than what I experienced. And any shaking, of course, is me just not being able to hold a camera still. But definitely when renting this lens, I was nervous about it only being in f4 constant, and that's nice. I do like the constant part of this, but I was thinking f4 wouldn't be wide open enough, but I think mid, like sunset to sunrise, I think during golden hour and kind of even after that, I think it's good enough for my work and kind of what I aim for my videos and photos. Anything like more night photography, I don't think is a good option. It was definitely seemed like it was struggling in some of those areas. Ending this segment on some more rodeo stuff, because it was definitely autofocus, and during the video part was great. I didn't have any weird shaking or breathing or anything. Mind you, I didn't really zoom in and out too crazily because I was trying to reach into the arena with the lens.
Good. 3 Charlie Brown. That bull spun 180 degrees in the air.
I definitely loved taking photos and videos at this rodeo. Mind you, I was just from the stands, but I'd love to do it in the arena because I saw some photographers that they probably have a pass or something where they can go in the shoots in the arena area. But yeah, I think the lens held up really well in this scenario for photo and video work while using the sun, as it was a bright day to help with all this. And I'm not the best videographer at keeping a camera steady or anything, but camera and lens wise, I think it knocked it out of the park, and I was fairly impressed with how it all turned out. So my final thoughts on this lens are mostly positive. I think if you do more videography, video work, I think this lens is perfect. If you can control your lighting, because if you need to do some low light stuff, I think that f4 kind of limits you. But the power zoom is smooth. I didn't have any issues with that, and the autofocus, with at least my experience, was fantastic. But if you're coming more from a photography standpoint, which I definitely am, not having the like focus rings of like the aperture and focal length kind of bummed me out a little bit. I knew that's what I was getting into when I rented the lens, but it kind of overall, like over the period of weeks, I kind of wish it had it. And that kind of leads me to my next part is I didn't end up buying this lens. I ended up returning it. I did buy a different lens, and I should have a video about that in the coming weeks, hopefully. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys have a good one, and I'll say bye-bye.